Hello, Jim Ross. Hey, Paul. Hey, Melody. Welcome back. Hey, Boss Man. Hey, XJ. Hello, Tracy. Oh, good to see you tonight. Thank you for sharing the live. Hello, Ash Marine. Hello, Judy Willis. Hello, Just Annie. I have missed you. Where is that other one? Hello, Ash. Hello, Karen. Welcome back. Hello, hello. Hey, Kimmy over there in YouTube. Hello, everyone over there. Hey, lovely. It was a boring weekend. Was it really? I was sick the whole weekend. So, yes, I do. We continue to sell good money for now. We'll see how it goes throughout the night. Kimmy, did you notice that you're closer? Hello, Leo. Hello, hello. Come on in. Make yourselves at home. Tonight is True Crime Tuesday. Let's start sharing the live. Friends, family, hi friends, 10 friends, 15 friends. Let's share it. Let's get it out there. You like the close-up? I think it's spooky as hell. I love it. Hey, Ray Bad. Hey, Sandra Jefferson. Hey, Julie. It just was not. But we tried. We gave it. We gave it all we had. Right? Right. Hello, Tara. Hello, Eric. Hello, Patricia. If you are brand new here, welcome in. I didn't like it either, Nana Sherry, and if I don't like something, I'm not going to change my mind. Hello, Mary. Are you watching on both, Tracy? Okay, cool. I think it looks very gothic on YouTube. Dare I say, even more red? I'm gonna have to play that up. Hello, Nikki. How are you? Hello, Marine's daughter. So good to have you back. We missed you. Hello, Mary. Hello, Eddie Santiago. Thank you, Karen, for subscribing. Good enough alone. Hey, Rhonda. Welcome back in, Rhonda. Let's welcome our night watcher, Rhonda, back to the crowd. Hello, don't judge me, love. Hey, honey. Hello, Teresa. Thank you for sharing the live. I'm still feeling a bit under the weather, so I'm just going to sit down tonight. But I am dressed all in black, which is obvious. I'm already preparing for the Halloween show. Thank you, Bossman, for sharing the live. I'll try to remember to keep these set throughout the night. Sometimes I do get so involved in the story, though. Everyone who got us to the first live goal. Hey Buddha J, how are you? Andrew Crick, welcome to Twisted Tales Live. Andrew. Hello, Shauna. Hello, Lynn. Hey, Melissa. 5 minutes. Hello, Celine. Welcome in, Celine. Is this your first time here? Do you like scary stories? Hello, Kim. Good evening. Pulled up in YouTube all the time, or does it constantly disappear? What's up about that? It just disappears. Magic, I don't know if you were here when I was making the announcement, but I am already working on my Halloween show. Thank you, thank you. I feel a charge in the air tonight. These are the types of lives I like. stories. Let's use those stickers, Grace. Use the stickers. Let's make this live look colorful and welcome and inviting. Did you know the more that you tap, the more the algorithm picks up on it that this is a popular line, and then it shoots out to the NYP, and then people start coming in. Tap, 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 tap. Hey, CC, welcome in. Julie, thank you for the NYP. Hey, CC, nice to see you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for all the stickers. Stickers are free. Post it. Tonight is True Crime Tuesday. Yes, you heard me right. True Crime Tuesday. Hey, Firefly. Don't forget your daily heart me. It does help. Tara, thank you for the repost. Look how colorful it is with all these stickers. Use those, Grims. Who's ready for a story? Hey, Blink Queen, good to see you. If I missed anyone, my night watchers will catch it. Welcome to the Night Room. I am the Night Queen, and this is Twisted Tales Live. My actual name is Bryn Morgan. I'm a horror author. I'm also a teller of scary stories, paranormal stories, ghost stories, true crime, serial unalivers, Appalachian horror, urban legend, folklore, cryptids, possession. Did I miss anything? Oh, dark fairy tales have been added to the mix. Yes, we are a hodgepodge of stories here. Tonight is True Crime. Viewers' discretion is strongly advised. This is a request that I am granting to Tracy. She knows who she is. This story, I don't know how I ever missed it. I don't know how I didn't know about it, but I do know about it now. And it is one that I will never forget. I'm going to start out by showing you a picture. This is the Harvey family. Brian, Kathy, Stella, and Ruby. Now that you got them in your mind, I'll begin the story. But first, let's go into story time, shall we? Lower your lights. Lock your doors. Light a candle for ambiance, or to chase those shadows away, perhaps. Pull your curtains nice and tight. Wrap yourself in your warmest blanket to avoid the chills that are about to crawl up your spine. And let's begin. Night dwellers, gather close. Some stories are born in the shadows. Ghost stories, whispered around campfires. Legends that twist with time, but others bleed from the earth itself. True, raw, and unforgiving. Tonight I bring you one of those stories, my dark children. A story of a family in Richmond, Virginia. A father, a mother, two little girls. A house filled with music, laughter, and love. And on New Year's Eve morning, 2006, that house became a tomb. This is not the story of strangers in a faraway land. It is the story of neighbors, people you would have waved to on the street, people whose door you might have walked past without a second thought. The Harvey family consisted of Brian, the musician, Kathy Harvey, the toy store owner, Stella and Ruby, their daughters. 4 souls who should still be here on this earth. 4 lives stolen by predators who saw an open door. For the love of God, lock your doors and step inside. Tonight, you will walk with them. You will sit in the warmth of their home before the shadows come. You will descend into the basement with them. Feel the tape across their wrist. Taste the smoke in your lungs. And you will hear the truth. Every terrible unforgiving truth until the fire burns out and only silence remains. So prepare yourselves for this one, night dwellers, because it's going to be dark. Because once you hear this story, you will never, ever feel safe behind closed doors again. You will never feel safe in your house again. Let me know in the comments. Start the story, Bryn. Chapter 1, The Beginning. Before the blood, before the fire, before the smoke that chucked out laughter and song, there was a love story. I'll start there. We'll start with love. Brian Harvey grew up in Virginia in the late 1950s. He wasn't the kind of boy that people expected to make noise in the world. He was actually very quiet, reserved, the kind of kid who lingered at the edge of a group rather than in its center. But where he didn't speak, his guitar did. He was extremely talented. By the time that he was a teenager, he was writing songs in his own room, fingertips blistered from the strings, lyrics scribbled on scraps of paper. The 1980s brought Brian into Richmond's rising indie music scene. Bars thick with cigarette smoke, crowds pressed shoulder to shoulder. He and his band, House of Freaks, called attention quickly. It was raw and soulful, a sound that made people stop and listen no matter where they were. And for a time, Brian tasted fame. He had producers contacting him, wanting the band to go bigger. There were radio plays, magazine write-ups, tours that carried him outside Virginia. His music promised him the world. But Brian Harvey never wanted the world. He wanted belonging. He wanted love. Catherine O'Hara was 10 years younger than Brian. She was born in 1966. She had a spark from the very beginning. To friends, she was Kathy, the girl with the wide smile and the laugh that seemed to catch everyone else in its rhythm. She was the type to fill a room just by walking into it. She was a light. Why is darkness so drawn to light like this? She dreamed big, but her dreams weren't of fame. Her dreams were of being a mother. Her dreams were of color, of creativity, of making her own children laugh and other children laugh. She would one day have her dream come true. She would own a toy store. She named it the World of Mirth. A toy store that became a landmark in Richmond, Virginia. A kaleidoscope of fun that carried her spirit in every corner. Brian met Kathy in Richmond. in the late 1980s. Some said it was at a show, others through mutual friends. What's certain is that it wasn't an explosion. It wasn't fireworks. It was something steadier, slower, but no less powerful. Brian was drawn to her vitality, her energy, and Kathy was drawn to his steadiness, his soulfulness, his music. Their friends noticed the way that Brian seemed lighter with Kathy, how he laughed more, how his eyes softened when she was near. And Kathy, she liked that Brian wasn't like the others. He didn't want to go out to a bar and drink. He wasn't loud. He wasn't brash. He was calm, thoughtful, a man who could steady her when the world spun too fast. The couple courted quietly. Dinners, late night conversations, talking on the phone till the wee hours of morning. Afternoons spent wandering Richmond streets. Sometimes he would be on stage and call her up to sit with him while he played. Music was often at the center. Brian with his guitar, Kathy curled beside him, listening as though each chord was a secret between them. One evening, after a small show, Kathy whispered to him, "You know, Brian, you don't have to chase fame to be extraordinary. You already are in my eyes." And Brian smiled. He set the guitar aside. He took out a box. She opened it. It was a reading. Nothing ostentatious, just a simple silver band with a small diamond chip. And he said, "I'm already extraordinary, Kathy. I found you." So they married in the late 1980s. Not in some sprawling hall, not in a cathedral, but in a modest, intimate ceremony. Their vows weren't about spectacle. They were about truth. Two people promising to steady each other in a world that so easily can slip away, can sweep you away, even. It wasn't long after the marriage vows were said that they dreamed of children, and the universe answered. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Their first daughter was Stella. She was born in 1996. Brian strummed his guitar in the hospital room, playing softly as Kathy held their newborn daughter, all dressed in pink, against her chest. Kathy whispered, "Look at her long fingers. There's either two things that she's gonna be, a pianist or an artist. Look how long and graceful her fingers are." But Brian replied, "She's going to be a musician. She's going to play the guitar just like her old man." We never found out what her long fingers were going to do. Stella grew into a thoughtful child. By the time she was 9, she was filling notebooks with drawings, little sketches of houses, portraits of her parents, trees bent in the wind. She saw the world through lines and colors, and she captured it with surprising wisdom for one that was so young. And then their house was blessed with another daughter, and her name was Ruby. She came along in 2001. Now, Ruby was different. She was fire where Stella was complete calm. She hummed constantly, a song always on her lips. She twirled through the house. She had fiery red hair, hence the name Ruby. Her feet pattering against the hardwood. She was only 4 on that last New Year's Day. Still baby soft, still unshaped by the world's cruelty. She didn't even know about it. She adored Stella, often tugging at her sleeve, begging to be included. And Stella would say, "Go away, you're just a baby." Together, the 4 of them were the picture of family. Not perfect, no. No family ever is, but they were close. They were real. And Brian's music filled the air. Kathy's laughter filled the rooms. Stella's sketches decorated the refrigerator. Ruby's toys littered the floor. Their house on West 31st Street wasn't large, but it was theirs. A home full of warmth. A home full of life. And it was into this home, this sanctuary, this peace, this normalcy, that the shadows would one day creep. Night dwellers, when you think of love stories, do you ever wonder how truly fragile they are? How quickly that a home of laughter can become a tomb of silence. Chapter 2, A House of Light. Thank you for the follow, Lee. The Harvey's house sat at 812 West 31st Street in Woodland Heights. It was not a grand estate, not a mansion towering over others. It was a modest 2-story brick home tucked among trees, with a front porch where neighbors waved as they passed by. Woodland Heights was an old neighborhood in Richmond, a place where the streets were narrow and children rode bicycles in lazy circles. In spring, azaleas bloomed along fences. In summer, the air carried the scent of cut grass and grills smoking on back patios with burgers, steaks, and hot dogs. Families had lived there for generations. People knew each other's names. They knew their children's names. They knew their dogs' names. They knew their cats' names. Everybody on that street knew one another. It was the kind of neighborhood where you could go next door, or send one of your children next door even, and say, "Hey, mom's trying to bake a cake, but she doesn't have enough eggs. Can we borrow a few? Or can we borrow a cup of milk?" Yeah, absolutely. It was that kind of neighborhood. To Brian and Kathy, it was the perfect place to raise their girls. They couldn't think of a better place. Inside, the house breathed with their life, Photographs covered every inch of the walls. Brian on stage with his guitar, Kathy in front of her stores surrounded by toys, Stella holding up one of her mini sketches, and Ruby with her face painted at a fair like a tiger. Each frame a snapshot of joy. The living room bore the chaos of a young family, couch cushions sagging from countless afternoons, a rug littered with toys and crayons, the faint dents of Ruby's little feet jumping and twirling in the carpet. The kitchen was Kathy's space. There were shelves filled with mismatched mugs and recipes scribbled on index cards, and a fridge covered in magnets, art, and reminders of school events. They were heavily involved in their children's lives. Brian had claimed a small den for his music that was all from the living room. Guitars propped in corners, an amplifier humming faintly on that January morning. Sheet music scattered across the desk. And the basement, cluttered with boxes of holiday decorations, stacks of toys that the girls had already outgrown, old furniture that had completely lost its purpose, but Brian always told Kathy, I'm going to refurbish it, I'm going to refabricate it, I'm going to do something with it. It was just a place for storage, as most basements are, for memories tucked away. It smelled of concrete and dust, the faint coolness of stone. No one imagined that when one day it would become a chamber of horror. Stella was a dreamer. On any given afternoon, she could be found by the window, pencil in hand, her sketchbook balanced on her knees. She drew the world as she saw it. And it was beautiful. Trees bent by winter winds, neighbors walking dogs, a cat sitting in a window, even her little sister Ruby, frozen in wobbly lines of graphite. Teachers adored Stella, calling her thoughtful and kind and creative beyond her years. And then Ruby was the fire of the Harvey family. Not just her red hair, but she was a spark. She loved to hum to herself little tunes, sometimes nonsense songs, sometimes echoes of her father's guitars. She followed Stella everywhere, tugging her sleeve, copying her drawings in messy crayon, dancing to every note of Brian's music. And Kathy encouraged her daughter's imaginations. She brought home toys from the world of mirth, not the expensive ones, but the whimsical ones. Puppets, puzzles, wind-up animals that whirred across the kitchen table. And Brian taught them the love of music, songs, the simple chords they strummed clumsily on its guitar. No telling where these children would have ended up. Their laughter spilled into the neighborhood. People noticed. Neighbors would say, now that family, the Harvey family, they're the kind you want to live beside. Always kind, always smiling. They're all just the sweetest family. On December the 31st, 2005, New Year's Eve, the Harveys stayed close to home. I wish they had left. They had friends over briefly, toasted to the new year ahead. Music playing in the background. Stella stayed up later than usual, sketching by lamplight. Before Kathy kissed her goodnight, I love you, my sweet girl. Sleep well. May the angels protect you. She said it every night. And Ruby, she fell asleep in her mother's arms, head heavy on her shoulder, Brian strummed on a guitar quietly as the night ticked down. They spoke of brunch the next day. Kathy had invited friends over. They were coming over later that next afternoon. They'd share food, laughter, stories of the past year. It was meant to be simple, joyful. The table was set, dishes prepared. The Harveys were ready to welcome the new year with open arms. But sometimes, night dwellers, the year doesn't welcome you. Sometimes it arrives with shadows at your door. Question. Tell me, when you think of your home, your kitchen, your children's rooms, your walls full of photos, do you believe those walls can truly keep the darkness out? No, they can't. Chapter 3. The shadows gather. While Brian tuned his guitar on New Year's Day, while Kathy set the table for brunch, while Stella sharpened a pencil to begin yet another one of her sketches, and Ruby hummed to herself in giggles and spun around and around and around and around until she made herself dizzy and collapsed on the floor in giggles. Two men were already prowling the edges of Richmond, restless and hungry. Ricky Javon Gray was born in Arlington, Virginia in the 1977. His life was marked by pain before he could even form memories. His childhood was steeped in abuse. Harsh hands, cruel words, scars that settled deep in the bones. By adolescence, violence had already etched itself into his soul. He wore it like a second skin. Teachers remembered him as withdrawn, angry, quick to lash out. And sadly, adulthood did not soften him. He drifted. Petty crimes, burst of rage, relationships poisoned by his cruelty. He married once, but his violence ended in it. His wife carried bruises of evidence of who he was and what he was. Drugs dulled the edges, but they never erased the hunger that was gnawing inside of him. Ray Dandridge was younger. He was Ricky's nephew, but drawn into his orbit like a moth to a flame. Ray had his own record, his own failures, but with Ricky, he became something darker. Something from his nephew rubbed off on him. Ricky gave him a model of someone to be, not of strength, but of predation. Together they were volatile. feeding each other's worst impulses. In late December 2005, this pair arrived in Richmond. No steady home, no jobs, homeless, no direction but downward, couldn't carry a job to save their life. They stayed with acquaintances, drifting between houses, stealing their money, stealing their alcohol, stealing whatever they could get their hands on. But their real existence was on the streets, prowling, watching, testing doors. That was their big thing. They would test doors, and the doors that were unlocked are the homes that they invaded. Night dwellers, when men like this wander a city, they don't see families. They don't even know what families are. They don't see lives. They see prey. That's what they see. And they talked often in low conspiratorial tones beneath cardboard boxes as rain fell over Richmond. They talked about easy targets, about what they could take, about what they could do. Violence wasn't a possibility for them, it was a certainty. Both of them had already been violent, so that was nothing for them. The only question was where and when. On the first morning of the new year, while most people were nursing hangovers, making resolutions, sleeping late, Ricky and Ray prowled Woodland Heights. They walked the narrow streets, their eyes scanning the porches, the windows, and the doors. And then they saw it. The Harvey home. If only the door was shut and locked. But it wasn't. The front door was just slightly ajar. The sound of faint music from inside. The smell of food beginning to cook. To most people, this would mean nothing. An unlocked door, a careless moment in a safe neighborhood, but to men like Ricky and Ray, they were just waiting for that opportunity. It was an invitation to them. They exchanged a look with one another, a sly smile crossing their faces. No words were needed. They had chosen where they were going to do their destruction. While the Harveys carried on with their morning, preparing to welcome friends into their home later that afternoon, the shadows stepped up the porch. They stopped and listened. They heard children's laughter. "Mommy, can I have another cookie?" They opened the door a little bit wider. "Stella, Ruby, come in here. Leave Mom alone so she can finish." They opened the door wider. And in that moment, the light of the Harvey home was pierced forever. The killers had entered. The nightmare had just begun. Night dwellers, do you believe in fate? Or do you believe that evil just simply waits, patient for the smallest crack in your door? Chapter 4, The Threshold. Viewer's discretion is advised. The door creaked. Shoes pressed against hardwood. And suddenly, the Harveys were no longer alone. Ricky Gray and Ray Dandridge walked into that house like they owned it. Predators often do, though. The first to notice was Brian. He had been in the den, strumming his guitar, letting a lazy melody float through the air. As Kathy moved back and forth from the kitchen, Kathy didn't see them at first. Brian stopped. He felt a hush come over the room. He heard footsteps. And at the sound of footsteps, he looked up. His smile was on his face. He was expecting to see Kathy or maybe one of the girls. But instead, what he saw were two strangers standing in his house, armed, evil, dark. One was tall. His eyes were hard. A hammer was glinting faintly in his grip. The other was younger and nervous, but just as dangerous. And he was clutching duct tape and cords. Brian froze. His mind must have leapt to robbery, to accident, to anything but this. He stood slowly. His voice was calm but uncertain. Hey there. Can I help you? Gray's voice was a knife. Sit down. Brian hesitated, and that hesitation cost him. Gray stepped closer. The hammer raised slightly, his eyes promising what would follow if Brian did not comply. Kathy appeared from the kitchen then, dish towel still in her hand. Confusion crossed her face. Who were these men? And why were they in her house? The towel dropped to the floor when she saw the knife at Gray's side. Her voice cracked, desperate. Please, don't do this. Please, you can leave right now. My husband and I will not say a word. Mommy, Ruby asked, who are the two men? Her voice cracked, desperate. Ruby! Go back upstairs with your sister, please. I'm cooking food. Would you like a hot meal? I can make you a plate, and then you gotta go. Okay? We're not gonna call the police. We're not gonna do anything. But Gray wasn't listening. He tossed the duct tape to Dandridge, who was standing the closest to Kathy. Tie her up. And the transformation began. The Harveys, once hosts preparing for friends, were becoming captives in their own home. Brian's wrists were yanked behind his back, the tape hissing as it unrolled, sticky against his skin. His mouth sealed with another strip, his protest muffled instantly. Kathy backed away, her hand pressed to her chest, eyes darting toward the stairs where Stella's footsteps echoed. "Mommy, I want you to look at this picture. Tell me what it's missing." Gray turned his head sharply, barking, "Get her!" And Kathy, her heart breaking, obeyed. She went to the stairs, calling up to her daughters with a voice she tried to keep calm. "Stella? Ruby? Honey, come here a moment." Stella's small feet patted down the steps. She was carrying her sketchbook, pencil still in hand. Her eyes lit when she saw her mother, and then clouded when she saw the strangers, the tape. Her father that she loved, bound and gagged. "Mom," she whispered. Kathy's voice trembled. "It's okay, baby. Just do what they say. Ruby, grab your sister's hand. Hold on to it. Hold on tight, okay? I want you, Mommy. I don't want Stella." "I know, baby. It's okay, it's okay." The sketchbook fell to the floor. Ruby appeared, tugging at her mother's sleeve, confused by the tension in the air. She was so young, too young to fully understand what was happening, but not too young to sense danger. She clung to her mother, eyes wide and wet. Within minutes, the entire family was bound. Tape across their wrists and ankles, tape across their mouths, cords pulled tight, their voices stolen, their movements restricted. The men worked with efficiency like they had done it before. They moved quickly, deliberately, testing the bindings, even on the girls, ensuring that no one could escape. Gray's breathing was steady, his face unreadable. Dandridge moved like an echo, following orders, sealing strips of tape across skin. And just like that, the Harvey home was no longer a place of warmth. It was a cage. A few minutes had passed. Brian's eyes were locked on Kathy's, trying to communicate without words. His eyes begged her, "Stay calm. Protect the girls. You survive. No matter what happens to me, you survive." Kathy's eyes filled with tears, her body trembling as Ruby whimpered into her side. Stella sat stiff and frozen, her hands trembling against the tape. Kathy looked down at both of her girls, trying her best to communicate them that everything was going to be fine. The sound of torn tape filled the air, the sound of safety unraveling. It is a sound that once you hear it in terror, you never forget it. Night dwellers, what would chill you more? The sight of a weapon or the hiss of tape sealing your voice forever? Chapter 5. The basement. An hour had passed. Ruby had wet herself. Stella was shaking uncontrollably. The order came sharp and cold from the oldest one. Let's get him downstairs. The Harveys hesitated. Brian tried to fight. They were bound, gagged, their eyes darting between each other, but hesitation earned them nothing. Gary pressed the weapon against Brian's shoulder. You want to be brave there, cowboy? Go to the basement. It was a reminder of who controlled the room. Dandridge tugged at Kathy's arm, forcing her forward. And once she went in the basement with Dandridge, Brian followed. And so they descended. The basement door groaned as it opened. Wooden steps stretched downward into shadows. Only a bare bulb hanging from the ceiling for light. Kathy led, stumbling as Ruby clung to her side. Stella followed close behind, her sketchbook still lying abandoned upstairs. And Brian came last, his body trembling, his eyes never leaving his wife or his daughters. The air grew colder with each step. The smell of damp concrete crept upward, feeling their nostrils. The sound of their feet, shuffling, bound, echoed hollow against the walls. At the bottom, the single bulb swung faintly, casting a sickly yellow light across the cluttered space. Boxes stacked along the walls, holiday decorations in sagging cartons, a doll missing an arm, old furniture gathering dust. But now the space wasn't storage, it was a cell. Gray and Dandridge positioned the family against the far wall. Tape tightened up again, wrists checked, ankles reinforced. Tape stretched across mouths, pulling painfully at lips and cheeks. The sound of tape hissed and ripped again and again until silence was forced into their throats. Silence can be a weapon. Brian shifted, straining against his bindings. His eyes were wide with desperation at this point. He made muffled noises, trying to bargain with them, trying to plead, but he couldn't get a word out. But Gray only stared back, cold and flat, his grip tightening on the weapon in his hand. Kathy sat rigid, tears streaking her face. Her body arched as she tried to shield Ruby with her frame. She leaned toward her youngest, pressing her shoulder against Ruby's tiny body, her eyes full of silent prayers. Please rescue us from this. Please, please. Ruby whimpered through her gag, muffled sounds of fear. Her small frame shook violently, her legs kicking lightly against the concrete floor. She couldn't stay still that long. Stella sat stiff, trembling, her hands balled into fists behind her back. Her eyes were wide, locked on her father, trying to draw courage from him. He was her Superman. He had always protected her. He caught her when she got stuck up a tree. He was always there, taught her how to ride her bike, cleansed and kissed her boo-boos when she fell. Why wasn't he saving her now? She was only 9, but she understood. She understood too much, and what was happening wasn't good. The two men did not speak much. They paced, they moved around the family, the pokers glinting in the swinging light. Their footsteps scraped across concrete. Sometimes they whispered to each other, as if they were having a discussion, too low for the Harveys to hear. But the family knew what those whispers meant. Brian looked at Kathy. They had seen them. Perhaps if they had blindfolded them first, then maybe there would be a chance, but they had seen them. they weren't going to let them live. That Brian knew. That Kathy knew. The question was, would they let her live and take Brian so that the girls would have a mother? They didn't know. They were deciding how they were going to do it. When men whisper about your unaliving within arm's reach, every second feels like a lifetime. Time stretched unbearably. Brian's breathing grew loud, forced through his nose, frantic. Kathy's shoulders shook as she tried to comfort Ruby with muffled hums, sounds of motherly reassurance, even when words were stolen. Stella's gaze darted between the men and her parents, her small chest heaving as her mind tried to make sense of this nightmare. The killers waited, deliberate, controlled. They didn't strike yet, and in many ways, that was worse. Because waiting in the dark, bound and gagged, watching men circle you with pokers and hammers is a torture of its own. Minutes passed, or was it hours? Time lost meaning. Every sound, the drip of water in the pipes, the shuffle of books, the knock on the door from the guests that were supposed to come, the sound of their car cranking up as they pulled out of the driveway, the scrape of the hammer handle against Gray's palm became unbearable. Ruby whimpered again. Just remember, she was only 4. Gray turned his head sharply, his eyes narrowing. He got right down on eye level with her, towering over her small body. His face was hard. "Shut up," he hissed. Kathy jerked forward instantly, the mothered bear coming out, straining against her bindings, trying to put herself between him and her daughter. But her wrist held fast, her body trembled with the effort. She made muffled, desperate noises, shaking her head violently. Gray smirked faintly at her, amused by the futility. He stepped back. Mama worried about her baby girl. In that basement, death was already in the room. Death had entered that house with those men. It just hadn't chosen its moment yet to strike. The family sat in silence, the air thick with fear, their lungs struggling under its weight. The unaliver's footsteps filled the space, back and forth, the sound of predators circling prey, and the Harveys. They could do nothing but wait. And sometimes the waiting is worse than the end. Night dwellers, which would break you first? The blow itself that you know is coming, or the silence as you wait for it to fall? We're going to take an intermission, take a little bit of a break from this story. We'll take an intermission, and when I come back, we will finish the rest of the Harvey family massacre. I'll be right back. What a story, huh? Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. Hey, light blue. I know, Nana Sherry. Me too. Hello, Bobby Johnson. This is a true story. Yes, it is. Hello, Patrona de Leons. I'll just say La Patrona. Lovely name. Mary, thank you for sharing the live. Right. The silence. Yeah, this is as true as they get. Nice job. We're at 234K. When we get to Kelly, thank you for sharing the live. Hey, Lynn. Likes are going pretty good tonight. Remember, we want to end at 400K or more. Hello, Nurse Callie. Nurse Callie, do you like scary stories? You know, I tried to put myself in a situation like that, and it's just so completely horrific. It's just beyond. It's beyond. Hello, Untamed Thai 84. Welcome. Hello, Wendy. Hello, El Dunny Flo. Welcome in, new names. Do you like scary stories? Thank you for the gifting. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the support. Thank you for sharing your live to your stories. Please share to the FYP, and let's just keep tapping, tapping, tapping. Hello, Fate Spear. Oh, I love your name. The song is scary, La Patrona. Hello, Toxico. Welcome to Story Time. Hello, Gothic Prince. If you are just coming in and you love scary stories, my name is Bryn Morgan. I'm a horror author. I tell every category of scary story that you can imagine. You like it? Hit that follow button and the notification bell and never miss another Twisted Tales live. And thank you. Hello, Rebecca Wolf. Good to see you. Hello, Manguito. This is a safe, warm, loving, welcoming community, family. We are not just alive, we are interactive. We build friendships, relationships, and I want you to come in for just the next couple of hours and let all your cares and your worries just melt away from the day and listen to a bedtime story. I just I don't know how people can be so evil. I don't know how you can have no heart. After hearing this story, you will wonder about that. They had no heart, they had no soul, they were just black as night. Hello, Lucas. And you know, I think one of the things. Hello, Sophie Squanto. Loving these names. Hi, Debs. Hello, hello. If I'm missing anyone, please let me know. Villegas05, welcome in. Welcome in. Do you like scary stories? If I'm missing any names, please let me know. Let me know. Hey, Bad Kitty Pop-Tart. Thank you, Justana. YouTube is acting good tonight. It is still recording, so we're good there. I am gonna have to do, it did not record Crimson Queen last Thursday, so I will be doing that part over on Thursday night. Hey, little Tito. How are you? Hey, Justine. Did I see... Hello, Sherry Phillips from Pennsylvania. Yeah, that'd be a great idea. Let everyone know where you're from in the chat. You never know. You might actually be from the same state. Massachusetts, Just Joe. Thank you for the follow. Joe, do you like scary stories? Mama Dukes from Iowa. Kim from Nebraska. Bad Kitty just outside of Huntington, West Virginia. Zoe in Florida. Nikki, it's a sad one. Tracy, Virginia in the house. This is her story request tonight. And if you have a story that you would like to hear, just let one of my night watchers know about it. They'll post it in the story submissions for me, and I will get around to reading it. Patricia from Virginia. Rebecca from Colorado. Love scary stories in Oklahoma. Nice, Judge Joe. Now, one thing that we are trying to grow right now, because we want to get monetized on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. We want to get monetized so we can have super chats over there, just like we have in here. Right now, we're at 421. If you are brand new here, this is your first time in here, would you consider subscribing to my YouTube as well? That way, you will be able to watch all the content. Every live is recorded, and you can go over there and watch it the next day or what have you. 423. Nice, X. Very good. We want to get to 500 as quickly as we can. So please, if you will just consider just going to my bio, clicking on my link. You don't even have to leave TikTok. Just click on it and you automatically become a subscriber. And it is free. Free, free, free. Mia's book has shipped, the autographed copy of The Haunting of Hastings House. I will be bringing up another one just so I can show it. while I'm on the live, but if you purchase a book while you are on the live, you will get it autographed by me. So just keep that in mind. Patricia V, welcome back. Mama Dukes. Share it with friends, family. Ex harassed her son so that he would sign up for a subscription on YouTube. She told him he would not get a Thanksgiving dinner. I love it. And then I've had a couple others that have actually stolen their family's phones and have had them sign up on YouTube as well. It's free. So please, if you'll do that, that would be fantastic. Once we hit 500, we have another 500 that we have to hit. YouTube doesn't exactly make it easy on us. So all right, we are getting ready to get back into story time. Thank you, Mia. I can't wait for you to get it. Nana Sherry. Nana Sherry bought a book. So tomorrow night, I will have a new book up here and I will autograph it for you, my love. Tracy, thank you for sharing the live. Hey, Legend of the 80s. I will say again, hello, Gothic Prince. I will say again that viewers' discretion is advised. These two men are ultimate evil. Bean, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing the live. We are trying to grow. We are trying to build our community, and the way that we're going to do that is with your help. But first, let's go back into story time, shall we? Lower your lights. Lock your doors. Is that candle still lit? Pull your curtains nice and tight. Wrap yourself in your warmest blanket to avoid the chills that are about to crawl up your spine. And let's begin with true crime, the Harvey family massacre. Chapter 6, The Blow. The basement air was still, too still. And then the stillness cracked. Ricky Gray shifted his weight, his boots grinding against concrete. It had been hours at this point. He bent down to the bag at his side and pulled out his weapon. Its head caught the light. Dull, metal, lethal. He turned it in his hand, testing its weight like a craftsman with his favorite tool. The sound of his palm smacking the wood handle echoed sharp in the silence. Thud. Thud. Brian's eyes locked on it. He was so tired and weary, but he kept his eyes focused on these two intruders. His head shook violently as one of them began to walk toward him. His muffled pleas bursting past the tape. Please. Please. Kathy's chest heaved, her bound hand straining, her body twisting to shield the girls even though her body was already pinned. Stella's little fist clenched tighter behind her back, her eyes wide, lips trembling behind the gag. Ruby whimpered again, her gag fluttering with each terrified breath. Grace stepped closer to Brian first. The weapon rose in the air. And then it fell. The sound was sickening. A hollow, wet crack as metal met skull. Brian's body jerked violently, his head snapping sideways. A muffled groan, guttural and broken, forced its way past the tape. Kathy's muffled scream tore through the room. Her entire body convulsed as she watched her husband dying before her eyes, as though she could leap across the floor and throw herself between him and the next blow. Stella cried out, the sound sharp even through the gag. Ruby froze. 4-year-old Ruby, eyes wide, her tiny body trembling uncontrollably. Grace swung again. The weapon struck with force, each blow punctuating the silence with horror. And this time, Kathy's husband's body sagged. The girl's father, his legs collapsing beneath him, his head drooping as blood darkened the tape around his mouth. The music was gone. The husband was gone. The father was gone. The man who had built this house with guitar strings and song was reduced to silence. And then Greed turned toward Kathy. She locked eyes with him, her gaze full of fire. Even bound, even gagged, even with her body shaking, she dared to glare at him, I would hope. It was the look of a mother who would not break, even as her death loomed. The weapon rose up in the air and fell. Her body jerked, her muffled scream slicing the room. Blood streaked down her face, her shoulders shaking with agony. She sagged against the wall, her gaze darting wildly to her daughters. Ruby cried, muffled sobs racking her tiny body. Stella's face twisted in anguish as she tried to scream, the sound strangled by the tape. These were monsters. To take the parents and leave those two helpless little girls frozen with terror, not only having to watch their parents be snuffed out like a candle, but then watching Gray turn his eyes on them. The weapon was not finished. Gray's eyes shifted to Stella, 9 years old, a child with a sketchbook upstairs waiting for her return, a child who should have been safe, wrapped in her mother's arms. He raised the weapon. Stella tried to curl into herself, pressing against her mother's side, who had already passed away. Her body shook, muffled cries spilling from behind the tape. And then Kathy moved. She struggled forward again, straining desperately to shield her daughter, but her bindings cut her down. The weapon fell on her again. And then it fell on Stella. And then there was only one more left. And this is so beyond cruel. And then it fell on Ruby. Just 4. Still baby soft, still believing in magic, still believing in princess. Her wide eyes locked on her mother's face as though she could understand nothing but fear. She shook violently, her little feet kicking against the concrete. Gray stepped closer. Ruby whimpered, her muffled cry slicing the air like a poker. Kathy convulsed, shaking her head violently, her body rocking in pure maternal desperation to hold Ruby. But Gray didn't stop. The hammer fell again. And then the poker. Gray pulled it from his waistband, the blade catching the weak light. He moved methodically, his motions cold and detached. He used the poker one by one, precise, deliberate, erasing voices forever. Blood spread across the concrete floor, pulling beneath the Harvey family, who only hours earlier had been setting a table for brunch. But even this was not enough. Gray overturned an art easel, dousing it with wine. He struck a match, flame dancing in the dim air. He touched it to the easel, and the fire leapt hungrily, climbing wood, racing toward boxes and walls. Smoke billowed thick and black, curling around the family, searing lungs already faint with breath. Stella's body convulsed, her chest heaving shallowly as smoke filled her. Ruby's tiny lungs strained in the haze. Kathy and Brian lay slumped. Their lives were already gone, extinguished in blood and fire. The house filled with crackling, the roar of flames devouring wood. Upstairs, pictures blistered, toys blackened, music sheets curled in the heat. The Harvey family was no longer a place of light. Their home was no longer a place of light. It was a tomb. And by the time the fire burned, the family was already gone. Chapter 7. The Discovery. It was just afternoon on January the 1st, 2006, when the call came in. A house fire. Woodland Heights. 911 call. Woodland Heights Police Department, what's your emergency? Yes, ma'am, I would like to report a fire. Okay, and the address? The person on the other end of the line gave the address. You really should hurry. Fire's billowing out of there, and I know that there's a husband and a wife and 2 girls that live there. Okay, ma'am, thank you. We're on our way. Engine siren slides through the quiet New Year's Day air. Red lights strobing against the gray sky. Fire trucks roared down narrow streets where neighbors were still outside, cooking, nursing hangovers, playing with their kids. Heads turned as they passed, people stepping onto porches, curious and concerned. The Harvey home was easy to find because smoke curled lazily from its windows, gray and ghostly, carrying with it the faint crackle of flames inside. The firefighters just went about their business. This was routine. An old house, dry wood. Fire could spread fast. Their boots struck the pavement hard as they leapt from the trucks, house rattling, axes gripped in gloved hands. They broke down the front door. The wood splintered, the frame groaning. Smoke poured out, fire poured out, acrid and thick, stinging their eyes, even through mask. Inside, the air was heavy, choking. The smell was more than smoke. It was something darker. They fanned out, upstairs, main floor, basement. Training and instinct drove them forward. Downstairs, the basement. A flashlight beam cut through the smoke. At first, the firefighters thought they were seeing shadows, dark lumps against the concrete floor, but as they stepped closer, the shapes became clearer. Arms, legs, faces, bodies. 4 of them, bound, still, silent. One firefighter froze, the beam of his light trembling as his stomach lurched. Another tore up his mask, choking not from smoke, but from the horror of the sight. What in God's name? Brian lay slumped, tape across his mouth, blood pooling beneath his head. Kathy's body leaned awkwardly, streaked in soot and blood. Stella, 9 years old, lay motionless beside her mother, her small frame twisted unnaturally. And Ruby, just 4, so tiny in chaos, her curls singed, her face still streaked with tears she would never shed again. The basement was not a fire scene, it was a slaughterhouse. The firefighters staggered back. One shouted up the stairs, "We've got bodies down here!" Another pressed his hands to his helmet, muttering, "Dear God, I know this guy." No! These were men who had seen car wrecks, shootings, every kind of disaster that you could think of, but this, a whole family that were well known in the town, children, murdered in their own home. This was different. Detectives soon poured in, their shoes crunching across debris, their eyes adjusting to the smoke-filled dark. They stood in silence, staring at the bodies. Even hardened investigators struggled to keep composure. One detective whispered, "Not the kids. Jesus, not the kids." They cataloged the scene carefully, the bindings, the tape, the hammer discarded near the corner, the knife, the overturned easel burned black, evidence of control, evidence of cruelty, evidence of men who had not simply killed but destroyed. Upstairs, the fire damage was clear. Charred photographs on the walls, children's toys blackened and melted, smoke stains curling up the ceilings, but none of it could hide the truth. This was no accident, no tragic fire. This was murder. Outside, neighbors gathered along the sidewalk. They saw the smoke, the fire, the flashing lights, the faces of firefighters, pale and shaken. Word spread quickly, whispers turning into shouts. What happened? Where are the Harveys? Are they okay? Then the truth trickled out, first in fragments, and then whole. They're gone. All of them. Can you imagine? The air filled with gasp. The gasp turned to sobs, and the sobs into wails of disbelief. Friends clutched each other. Some fell to their knees on the cold pavement. The Harveys had been the heart of the neighborhood. Kind, creative, full of life, music coming through the windows. Now they were gone, snuffed out in just one morning. By evening, the news spread across Richmond. Televisions carried the story. A family of 4 found murdered in burning home. People stared at the screens in disbelief. Brian Harvey, the beloved musician who had just brought so much joy to people's lives through his music. Kathy Harvey, the joyful toy store owner. Many of their kids had been in there and bought toys in her store. Stella and Ruby, 2 children with lives only just beginning. The whole town was in shock. The new year had barely begun, and Richmond was already drowning in grief. The house still stood, but it was no longer a home. It was just a blackened shell. It was a tomb. Chapter 8. The Trail of Blood. Richmond staggered beneath the weight of the Harvey murders. On January the 2nd, flowers began to appear in the yard of 812 West 31st Street. Candles flickered in paper bags, handwritten notes tucked beneath the railing. Neighbors gathered in clusters, whispering, clutching their children tighter than usual. The Harveys had been the family that everyone loved. The musician father, the bright creative mother, the 2 beautiful little girls. Their absence screamed across Woodland Heights. The police worked without rest. Detectives sorted through evidence, studied bindings, matched blood patterns. They knew that this wasn't random. Whoever did this hadn't just stumbled into violence, they had orchestrated it. And still, no one expected the killers to strike again so soon. The monsters do not sleep, night dwellers. They never do. Just 5 days later, 5 days, January the 6th, 2006, another family's door opened. The Baskerville Tucker home sat in Chesterfield County, a modest brick house, neat and ordinary. Inside lived Percival Tucker, 55 years old, steady and hardworking. His wife Mary, 47, warm and kind, and their daughter Ashley, just 21 years old, restless sometimes troubled but tethered to her parents with love. Ashley had known Ricky Gray. More than that, she had been his girlfriend, sometimes his accomplice. She had stood in the Harvey home during their massacre, wearing Kathy's stolen wedding ring, which this was told after the fact, taken as a trophy. She had chosen the side of shadows. But with men like Gray, loyalty is a temporary shield. Sooner or later, accomplices become witnesses, and witnesses become liabilities. On that Friday evening, Gray, Dandridge, and their friend Barker entered the Baskerville Tucker home. To the neighbors, the night was silent, unremarkable, but behind closed doors, that same familiar ritual began again. Duct tape hissed. Plastic bags rustled. The family was bound. Percival's wrist wrenched behind his back, his voice muffled by tape, Mary's pleas silenced by plastic stretched tight over her mouth. Ashley, the girl who thought she was safe, who thought that she was in control, was tied beside her parents. There were no pleas that could change what was coming. The murderers gagged them, forced them to the floor. Percival's eyes burned with fury. Mary's with terror. Ashley's with shock. They had trusted these men. Ashley had loved one of them, and still she would die at their hands. One by one, their throats were cut. Plastic bags pulled over their heads, sealed with duct tape. Percival struggled, his body thrashing until oxygen abandoned him. Mary trembled violently, her hands clawing uselessly against the tape. Ashley fought, but the tape held her down, her breath stolen, her stolen wedding ring glinting faintly in the light. When it was over, the house was silent. 3 bodies lay still, bound and suffocated. Yet another family erased. The spree was no longer theory. It was fact. 2 families, 6 lives, all in less than 1 week. When police arrived, they found the same signs: tape, bindings, suffocation, the echoes of Woodland Heights, a pattern of predation. Richmond was not safe. News spread, fear rising like smoke through the city. People double-locked doors, nailed windows shut, kept lights on at night. But the truth was colder. When predators like Gray and Dandridge walked free, no door was strong enough. And so the question shifted, not who did this, but how long until they're caught. Because if they weren't stopped soon, the bodies would keep piling up. Question, night dwellers, do you think evil ever has enough? Or does it always come back hungry for more? Chapter 9, The Confessions. By January the 7th, 2006, Richmond was paralyzed. 2 families murdered in less than a week. 6 lives stolen, and 4 of them children. Detectives worked like men drowning, clawing at every piece of evidence. They tracked credit card use, pawned items, whispers from the street, The stolen ring, the bindings, the method, it all pointed to predators who would not stop until someone stopped them. The break came in Philadelphia. Ricky Gray, Ray Dandridge, and their accomplice Barker had traveled north, hiding in a row house, believing that distance would cloak their crimes. Foolish men. They sat in the dim interior, cigarettes burning, television flickering, while the city of Richmond bled. And they seriously believed themselves untouchable. But predators leave tracks, and their trail was red. Police closed in on a tip. The takedown was fast and brutal, decisive. Boots slammed into doors. Officers stormed the row house. Gray was shoved to the floor, his hands wrenched behind his back, cuffs biting his wrist. Dandridge was forced against a wall, Barker dragged into the night. At first they were stone. Not one of them said a word. Gray's eyes darted, calculating, but his lips stayed sealed. Dandridge scowled, silent, defiant. But interrogation rooms have a way of unraveling men. Hours passed. A cigarette smoke curled in the fluorescent air. The ticking of clocks grew louder. The weight of evidence pressed down like a suffocating blanket. Dandridge broke first. His voice was flat, almost casual, as he admitted to the Baskerville Tucker murders. He spoke of bindings, tape, suffocation, as though reading from a grocery list. He was cold and detached. But Gray was different. When he began to talk, the detectives leaned forward, and what spilled from his mouth froze them. He described everything. He described the Harvey home in clinical detail. He described entering through the front door, how Brian had looked up from his guitar in surprise. He remembered every detail, how Kathy had begged him, how Stella's sketchbook fell to the floor, how the little girl with the red hair whimpered, that's what he called her, the little girl with the red hair, clinging to her mother's side. And he smirked. He described the bindings, the tape hissing as it tore, the family forced in the basement like animals being herded. He described the blows of the weapon one by one, how Brian groaned with every blow, how Kathy convulsed with every blow, how Stella cried out through her gag, how Ruby's tiny body shook. Then he described the poker, the blade slicing throats with mechanical precision. And finally, he described the fire. The match struck, the smoke curling, filling lungs, silencing what life remained. He told it all with a chilling absence of feeling. One detective pressed him. Why? Why them? Why did you have to unalive children? Gray shrugged his shoulders, and you know what he said? The door was open. No plan, no vendetta, no purpose but destruction. A family slaughtered because opportunity knocked, and monsters answered. Then came his words of hollow remorse. I don't believe sorry is strong enough for what we did. None of this was necessary. He said that. Sorry. As if that word could just stitch back what he tore apart. Just as easy as anything. For the detectives, the confession was a double-edged blade. It was relief. The unalivers were called, the sprees stopped, and horror because they knew exactly what had happened in that basement from the words of the man himself. And for the families of Brian, Kathy, Stella, and Ruby, the truth was a weight that was heavier than silence. He did it because the door was open. The truth was a weight that was heavier than silence, knowing how it happened and knowing that it was all for nothing. Richmond exhaled, but it was not relief, it was grief, deeper now, painted with detail. The monsters had been unmasked, but the Harveys were still gone. And justice was waiting. Question, my dark children. When a killer shrugs and says, sorry, do you feel anger? Or do you feel nothing at all? The confessions tore through Richmond like a second fire. Now the city had names. Ricky Gray, Ray Dandridge, Barker, but names did not bring peace. Names did not bring Brian back, or Kathy back, or Stella, 9-year-old Stella back, or 4-year-old Ruby back. It didn't bring back Brian's music, or Kathy's laughter, or Stella's drawings, or Ruby's songs. The families of these victims gathered in grief-stricken clusters. Candlelight vigils grew in size. Crowds lining the streets outside 812 West 31st Street, the air trembling with hymns and weeping. Photographs of the Harveys were taped to the porch railing. Flowers piled high in their yard. Toys left behind as offerings for the little girls who would never play again. And then came the trials. Courtrooms became theaters of pain. Families filled the benches, their hands clutched while around tissues, eyes locked on the men who had destroyed them. Prosecutors laid out the evidence brick by brick, the bindings, the poker, the fire, the weapon that was used so cruelly. Forensic photographs were shown, images so horrific that jurors wept openly, averting their eyes. The Harvey family had been erased, and now piece by piece their absence was laid bare before the court. Gray sat quiet, expressionless. His eyes were flat as prosecutors read his own words aloud, repeating his confession in the sterile air of the courtroom. Why did you do it? The door was open. That single phrase, those 4 words, fell like a curse. A whole family murdered because the door was ajar. Kathy's sister sat in the courtroom, her head bowed, tears streaming as she whispered, "They were the kindest people. The kindest. How could you find that kind family and do this to them?" Gray was convicted on multiple counts of capital murder, but for Brian and Kathy, he received life sentences. For Stella and Ruby, the children, he received death. Even in a justice system that bends, that wavers, that often compromises, the murder of these two innocent girls left no room for leniency. Dandridge, in exchange for cooperation, was sentenced to life in prison without parole. You stupid coward. He would breathe, but he would never walk free again. Barker, too, would face his own punishment, though lesser. But Gray, his road ended differently. Years passed, appeals filed, hearings held, lawyers clashing over technicalities. Still, the verdict stood. The execution was set. January the 18th, 2017. The Greensville Correctional Center loomed heavy that night, floodlights slicing through the dark. Outside its gates, two groups gathered. On one side, protesters against the death penalty, holding candles and signs, their voices low in prayer. He got exactly what he deserved. On the other, those who demanded vengeance, shouting, demanding that Gray pay with his life. Inside, the ritual unfolded with quiet efficiency. Gray was led from his cell, shackled, his orange jumpsuit rustling against the linoleum. Guards flanked him, their faces blank. He walked with a strange calm, as though resigned. The executioner chamber was small and sterile. A gurney waited beneath harsh fluorescent light. Gray was strapped down, leather tightening across his wrists, his ankles, his chest. IV lines were inserted, needles biting into his skin. I only wish that he had been taken the way that he took those girls and their father and their mother. To me, this was too easy. Needles biting into his skin, witnesses gathered behind glass, journalists with notebooks poised, officials, members of the victims' families, their faces drawn tight, their eyes fixed on the man who had taken everything. God, if I was the judge. The warden asked if he had any final words. Gray's voice was faint. I asked for your forgiveness. He said he was sorry. But forgiveness does not live in words, not after a basement stained in blood and fire. At 9:42 p.m., the lethal injection began. The chemicals slid into his veins, quiet, efficient, final. His body tensed once, then relaxed. His chest rose, fell, and stilled. By 9:42 p.m., Ricky Gray was pronounced dead. But justice does not resurrect. Brian's guitar will never play again. Kathy's laughter will never echo in her toy store. Stella's sketches will never fill another notebook. Ruby's songs will never drift down the hallway. All that remains are photographs, memories, and silence from other family. Richmond honored them. Vigils, memorials, even a bridge named in their memory. But every January the 1st, the air still hangs very heavy. Because when the new year begins, it's not resolutions that people remember. Not champagne, not fireworks. They remember the Harvey Massacre. And the house on West 31st Street still stands. Neighbors pass it, their eyes sliding toward the windows, remembering smoke curling from them on that cold January morning. The walls may have been repainted, the damage repaired, but some things cannot be erased. Because when a home has witnessed that kind of horror, it never truly forgets. And neither do we. Night dwellers, do you believe justice truly heals? Or do you believe that some wounds bleed forever? Speaking from my own experience of losing my sister, wounds bleed forever. Thank you, night dwellers, for bearing witness to the story of the Harvey family massacre. I would like to light a candle in their honor in the comments. If we could light candles for Brian, Kathy, Stella, and Ruby. Let's also not forget the other family that was brutally taken as well. So this is the Harvey family, if you came in late and did not see their picture. Beautiful family, just absolutely beautiful. There will be no scary, spooky ending tonight in respect of these families and their passing. And this is the second family that lost their lives. And that was Parnell, Mary, and Ashley. Ruthlessly taken. That's a great idea, Nana Sherry. Unis for the kids. Thank you, Rhonda. I can tell you that the grief and the heartache never go away. The anger never goes away. Sometimes I think that's what fueled me, was the anger. But let's light candles for these families. Unicorns for the kids. Let me also see if had anyone heard of this story before? This was the house. We're about to hit that live goal. We hit the 400K. Thank you so much. And we're about to hit the live goal. We need 2 more hearts. That is the house. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, thank you. I'm not giving any attention to who did this. I will not do it. They don't deserve any respect. This was Kathy and Ryan. A family that had their whole life ahead of them, just so ruthlessly just ripped away. They did. They looked very happy. Here was, this is a picture that really got me. This is Kathy and her daughter Ruby. You can tell that she had red hair. Just so senseless. So tragic. I know, Rhonda. And this is a picture of Kathy in her Wonder of Mirth, her toy store. They were. All right, family. There you go, Tracy. As I was saying, if you have a story that I haven't covered yet that you would like for me to cover, just let one of my beautiful moderators know, one of my night watchers, and they will get it over to me. I want to end this show on a respectful note. Tomorrow night is Paranormal Wednesday. You know what that means. Spooky night. I lost my sister in 2010. Hey, Butterfly Queen. You're welcome, Tracy. I lost her in 2010. She was murdered because she was chosen as part of a gang initiation. The guy that murdered her was looking for, he was instructed to find a woman with blonde hair that was tall, and then when he did it, to take pictures of her and show the gang, and then he would be able to become a part of the gang. You're welcome, Tracy. So senseless. He does have life in prison without the possibility of parole. You're welcome, Kelly. Terrible. Thank you, Pestelina Pink. Thank you, Delia. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Melissa. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you all. Thank you, thank you. I'm glad that we're back on track with the live. Thank you, Patricia. I'm glad that we're back on track with the live. We are back on it. We're back on a roll. Thank you for all that have became subscribers on YouTube tonight. I think I saw one on my iPad. I don't know if that was all. And then thank you for the likes. Thank you for the gifting. Thank you for the hearts. Thank you for sharing the live. Thank you for sharing to your story. Thank you for sharing to your FYP. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, Kelly. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let y'all go to bed. And I will see you here tomorrow night, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. Oh, you're most welcome, Tracy. Good night, Mia. Good night, everyone. Love you all. Good night, Hopi Little Butterfly. Thank you, Leslie Marie. Good night. Good night, YouTube. Christina!